Welcome to California Edition. My name is Brad Pomerance. It is my honor, my pleasure to introduce you to the new Chancellor of the Los Angeles Community College District. His name is Francisco Rodriguez. He is joined by the Vice President of that district. You know him well. His name is Scott Svonkin. Sir, congratulations.
Thank you so much. Happy to be
here. You've
here.
been here for a very short time. I want to speak with you about your journey to joining the LACCD. What brought you to this august district?
Well, you know, I've been part of the California public higher education system now for going on close to 30 years. So I've always respected the district from afar, and when the opportunity came from the Board of Trustees, an opportunity to lead the district, I took a close look at it, and I thought there would be a good match with my temperament, my skill level, and the needs of the district. I thought there was a pretty good match there.
So, Sir Scott Svonkin, what made you realize that Mr. Rodriguez was, or Dr. Rodriguez was the man for the job?
Well, it was a long and difficult process.
No
we
doubt.
searched all across the nation, and we wanted to find a leader that shared the values of Los Angeles, that cared first and foremost about our students, and that would fight to make sure that we're the best in the world, that our students deserve the best education, and we want to put students and our faculty and our staff first. We want to make sure that their learning experience is world class. And I realized after interviewing probably a half a dozen to a dozen people, reading resumes from dozens,
Sure.
that Dr. Rodriguez not only had shared our values, but had the experience to lead the most complex, the largest district in the nation. And we're really lucky to have him. And I'm looking forward to working with him for many years, because we need to have a leader, an education leader with a vision to make sure that the LA Community College districts from the top of the San Fernando Valley
Right.
to the harbor have all the best opportunities for our students.
Let's talk about this district. I think it's fair to say you must be pleased that you're not overseeing the San Francisco City College system, because they are in a whole heap of shape. They are in an accreditation crisis.
Yeah.
We needn't go there, but I bring it up to make the distinction between a system that's in crisis and one that does seem to be thriving. Talk to us about why LACCD is working and how you would like to take it to an even greater level.
Yeah, thank you, Brad. Well, I think it is working. First and foremost, I believe that we have excellent faculty, people who are teaching in our classrooms, doing the good work. Our doors are open for business. We have 9 colleges and educational centers throughout 40 cities that we serve.
Right.
In this particular area. So first and foremost, we have excellent faculty, excellent teachers, and I've been real pleased with the direction and excellence of the teaching core, if you will.
But without necessarily casting aspersions on San Francisco, something went wrong there. And so why is it that LA has been able to lift up?
Well, first and foremost, you have to have a very it's a strong governing board.
Right.
That sets its standards very high, that expects its chancellor to do the good work, and I believe that that's occurred. I think the board has been very clear about its expectations.
So let's look forward. I'm sure you're very excited. What are your goals as you move forward? I know it's a broad question,
It is.
but you know, what do you hope to achieve? Are we going to open another campus? Are we
Right.
going to consolidate a campus? I mean,
Well,
open new programs?
Right. Thank you, Brad. It's a great question. I've thought a lot about that. But first and foremost, focus on students and getting the educational attainment of our students increased. We have scorecards that we post on our websites
Right.
that are very transparent, that are very open. Folks can look at them. We want to ensure that the student achievement levels of all of our 9 campuses goes up. And secondly, I want to ensure that there's significant and sufficient funding to run our schools. We've been very pleased with the allocation of resources that we project this academic year. However, that brings us back to 2008, 2009 levels. So we're still
Right.
not where we should be. We lost during the Great Recession about 20,000 full-time equivalent students. We're starting to capture those back now. There's a great demand, great need. So part of my responsibility is to ensure that there are resources to open our doors.
And Mr. Svonkin, give me a sense of what you've seen in terms of at some level restoration of funds that were cut during the Great Recession.
Well, it's the governor's commitment is clear, but it's not been huge. He has deep roots in Los Angeles Community College District, and we're very proud of it.
Explain that.
Well, he served his very first elected office on our board.
Right.
It was where he began his political career.
Right.
And now he had an advantage. His dad was a governor. My
Yes.
dad was a school teacher.
Yes,
So
okay.
we're slightly different in our
Right,
approach, but
right.
But we're restoring classes this summer for the first time in 5 years. Thanks to the governor and the people of California and Proposition 30, we're going to have summer school at all of our campuses. And that's a huge step in restoring our promise that our doors are open for business and that we're going to accept everybody. That's the difference between the UCs and the CSUs and us. Los Angeles community colleges will help everybody achieve their dreams, whether they want one class to improve their skills or whether they want to transfer to a UC.
And you talk about transfers, and you will know this because you had been at a system before. During the Great Recession, schools in Arizona, in Oregon, in Nevada, they were very adept at plucking community college transfers away from California into their states. Are we starting to thwart that exodus?
We certainly are, because with the resources that have been afforded to the California community colleges now, we are now opening up sections of classes. We're open for business all across the state. So when students were looking for those seats where they didn't have before, we are now restoring that. So we're getting back to where we should be. Our entire system, the California community college system, lost 500,000 students between 2009 or so until the last year. So we're starting to get that back now.
Yeah, please,
Brad,
sir.
it's really important to know that our district has been building towards relationships to strengthen them with Cal State LA, UCLA. Our goal is to make sure that our colleges make sure that the partnerships are tight and that students are guaranteed access. If they achieve their goals at our community colleges, they will be guaranteed seats at the local, state, and universities.
Are there direct pipelines? I know, for example, in Long Beach, there's what's known as the Long Beach Promise.
Right.
Do those programs exist at LACCD?
Yes, they do.
Yes, they
and
do.
we want to make them exist at all of our schools so there's a seamless, articulated academic pathway where we take the mystery out of getting in.
Right.
And where students can complete their first 2 years at the community college with us.
Sure.
And then complete their last 2 there. Most folks don't realize that this last graduation cycle, 6 out of 10 California State University graduates up and down the state began at one of our state's community colleges.
I think one of the most exciting developments in your system, in the entire state community college system, is the possibility that the system may be permitted to offer bachelor degrees.
That's correct.
Getting a community college degree that is not a 2-year associate's, but a 4-year bachelor's.
I think we're
Talk to us about it.
Thank you, Brad, for the question. We're about as close to that possibility as we ever have been.
Right.
There are over 20 states in the country that have bachelor degrees offered by their local 2-year systems. Senate Bill 850, sponsored by Senator Block, has pushed it through.
And you must know Senator Block, having been from San Diego.
Yes, of course.
Right.
So it's received tremendous support at the legislative level, and now it's going through some hearings now. But it would allow us, the real benefit here is that it will allow us to offer bachelor degrees in technical areas where workforce demands are needed.
Is LACCD ready for that challenge? Because presumably it's a different skill set to teach towards a bachelor's as an institution. Is this system ready?
Well, I think that we've gone on record. Our board voted to support the block bill.
Right.
It is our goal to make sure that in select areas we're prepared. And it's only a few more credits in the select area. So if you've achieved your AA, it is not a long trip to get your bachelor's degree in a very specialized field.
What fields would you think would be appropriate, sir?
Allied health, nursing, those are the areas where there is great demand and great need.
Right.
And what you need is excellent faculty who have the credentials. We have that. What you need is facilities and space and relationships with the clinical hospitals to support the placements of students.
Cost? Will it still be just $46 a unit for the BA?
No, it will not. It's going to go up, but our estimation is that you could get a bachelor's degree for less than $10,000 in one of these career and technical areas over 4 years.
Over
4 years.
Right.
Wow, because
that's the goal.
The CSU system, it's what, $6,000 a year? That would be a huge accomplishment if that can happen.
Well, you could see the economic benefit of starting at a community college and then transferring or doing all your work at a 2-year school.
His name is Dr. Francisco Rodriguez. He is the Chancellor of the LACCD. He is joined by Scott Svonkin, Vice President of the Los Angeles Community College District. I'm Brad Pomerance, and this is California Edition.
What percentage of students within the Los Angeles Community College District indicate as their goal a desire to transfer to a 4-year institution? 39, 47, 61, or 72%. 47% of LACCD students seek to transfer to a 4-year higher educational institution.
Welcome back to California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Dr. Jan Britz is with us. She is the superintendent at the Burbank Unified School District. And I want to speak with you about what you've seen over the last decade or so. You joined Burbank Unified in 2006, right before the storm hit. You have lived through the tornado that is the Great Recession. You were now on the other side. Talk to us about the last 8 years.
Well, Brad,
Oh
that is a loaded question.
Yes.
You know, in education, the pendulum has shifted from time to time anyhow.
Yes.
But this time in the last, starting in 2007 actually, is when it really hit education hard. That's when the cuts came in. And school districts, K-12 school districts were taking 20% cuts every year. Our district in 5 years, $100 million. And one of the things that I tell parents, if you have like a $200,000 income for the family, in 5 years, if it goes down to 100,000, what do you cut out? Our budget at that time was about 220 million.
And at its low?
And a year ago, about 120 million.
Oh my God.
And the previous governor promised the districts that was going to be something that would eventually be paid back to the districts.
Right, because money had been
with
borrowed.
Prop 98 revenue. Well, now we have a new funding formula.
Right.
The biggest reform in over 40 years in education.
Literally.
Truly. And so with that local control funding formula now, nobody's talking about those promises. Nobody's talking about making us whole.
Though the governor is paying back some of that, is he not?
He is paying back some of that, and he's got this this plan to 2020, which will give us the same revenue that we had before these cuts took place. But Brad, I just want to say, you need to remember though, in 2020, we're going to have the income and the revenue that people had in 2007. That's what we get. So we're still...
But here's the challenge. If I have a kid in the system today, the fact that the state may pay back the system in 5 years, that doesn't help my kid.
It does not.
He's already graduated.
Exactly. And that's really what has happened. Resources have been taken away as far as personnel, larger class sizes, intervention programs have been cut, extracurricular programs have been cut. In addition to that, it does affect that child directly.
But is it getting better? I mean, the voters were very generous
They were.
when they passed Prop 30. And the governor, I mean, you look at his budget priorities, it's hard to deny that he does not have a sweet spot for K-12. Some would say to the exclusion of 13-14 community college, UC-CSU, dental care, Medi-Cal. What's your sense?
Well, I want to say thank goodness for Governor Brown, because one of the things, as you know, his strongest constituents is CTA.
Right, which is a blessing and a curse, some would argue.
It is. But the fact that we have his ear open to what the teachers are talking about gives him a direct line to education. What do the teachers want? The teachers want more resources, they want more programs, they want lower class size, they want better education for their kids, along with, compensation, etc. But those things are all good for the whole system. So the fact that this year, for example, he's raised everybody's base grant.
Right.
And he's put in supplemental and concentration. In Burbank Unified, we have received base money, okay?
Are you a district that gets I know as part of the LCFF, if you have even one child that falls into the 3 categories, you'll get money for that child.
We will.
But if you hit, is it 55% within those 3 categories, you get a big bump.
That's for concentration. We do not make that. We have 39%. But we do get some funding for that 39%. That's called a supplemental.
Right.
Correct. And with that, one of the things, as you know, he wants local control, and he wants us to listen to the local voice. And so we have put together that LCAP committee. And the nice thing about that is, in Burbank, because the community is so involved in the schools, they really came through and worked with us with a really good plan.
I want to talk about the LCAP, known as the Local Control Accountability Plan.
That is correct.
And what that plan requires is, like you said, you listen to and talk to the stakeholders. What did they tell you?
Well, let me just tell you how we comprised it.
Please.
Most superintendents, as I go to superintendent meetings, did a draft of a LCAP, And then what they did, they met with PTA, they met with the boosters, they met with the business community and say, what do you think? And then made some revisions along the way. What we did is we opened it up to the whole community, and we brought representatives from all of our stakeholders. We brought representatives from PTA, from boosters, from our school site councils, from the local merchants, from classified.
And what did they say?
Well, we had a group of 60.
Right.
And first we had to do some education of what's been cut, what difference that makes in our school system at the time. And then they made goals that we will be adopting. And we had our first LCAP that we brought to the board meeting last night as a draft. And what they said is they want, the things that they want is they want our ESL students to have some,
ESL?
Yes, to have some support and some intervention, so that we can get them up to grade level. And of course, that's one of the mandates anyhow. Right. And then they really want to make sure that they have contact with good counseling, that we're able to really look at the math and the English and really make sure that we have competent teachers in there, as well as that we're providing staff development for our teachers, because we haven't had money to really train our teachers.
But what's interesting is while the LCAPs are providing you with those priorities, you have a new, really a second revolution going on. You have LCFF going on, then you have Common Core coming in, which is a set of national standards that California has adopted, as have the vast majority of states, which really changes the way children are educated. Instead of educating a little bit about a lot of subjects, the intent is that you educate much more deeper. You may not hit as many subjects, but the analysis is much deeper. Is that a fair description?
You have a good understanding
well,
of that.
Thank you for that.
And along with that, let me remind you, we've been kind of stripped of funding for 5 years continuously.
Right.
LCFF comes in, okay, biggest reform in 40 years of education. Then we have this mandate to include the stakeholders, make a plan of how you're going to put back support. Then you have Common Core. Which is setting standards, sort of. It is, but at the same time, too, it is 15% of new curriculum in our grades, pretty much. And we'll do 85% of the same content standards that we had. But it is deeper, and it makes the teachers teach differently. Right. And it also includes technology, because if we're getting our students ready for the 21st century, we have to integrate technology throughout. Is Burbank Unified, as an example of a nice mid-sized district, prepared in terms of the technology? I mean, we know some large districts have faced challenges with technology, some small districts as well. Yes, we are, and you know that we have to be, because our community expects it. It is Burbank. That's the thing. Right. The other thing that we have an advantage too is because things were getting so tight in our district, we just passed a $110 million bond last March. And so because of that, we have that for capital improvements, and we also included a technology component. So the technology and the infrastructure and the tools for the classroom that's needed for Common Core can be paid out of bonds. I want to ask you about kids, let's say junior high school age. You know, a kid in elementary school, they'll adapt well to Common Core. Kids in high school, you know, probably too late, but that's fine. It's these junior high school kids that are kind of stuck in the middle. That's correct. You know, how are they going to adapt? Because they really are going to need to adjust, but they had 5-6 years of, you know, very No Child Left Behind type of education, you know, drill and kill. Right. Well, I'm going to focus on a couple of things and tell you how it affects. You know, this is Generation Z, total technology. Right. You know that. I do. But with technology, as much as we embrace it and we love it and it inspires us, there's some drawbacks on this. And if look at how the kids use their smartphones. They're not having phone conversations. No. They're not interacting. I don't like it. With that. They're texting. I don't like it. And so what the 21st century skills of the Common Core is communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. So when you look at that student in the middle school that's going through a great deal of growing in many different ways, what we are doing is we are training teachers to do a different kind of teaching. We're not teaching like the teachers taught us. No doubt. We're doing a lot of engagement strategies. Will you come back and talk more about it? Yes. I would like that. Her name is Dr. Jan Britz. She's the superintendent for Burbank Unified School District. I'm Brad Pomerance. It's California Edition.
According to the most recent data, which state spends the most per pupil in the nation? Alaska, Connecticut, New Jersey, or New York? Governing indicates that the state of New York spends the most per pupil of any state in the country.
It's California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. We are joined today by Chen. He is a member of the Hacienda La-Puente School Board. And who would have thunk we'd ever see this headline, Teacher Job Protections Struck Down. In other words, California's teacher tenure rules have been declared unconstitutional. What are the teacher tenure rules in the most basic sense?
So basically what we have now is a new teacher. You have the first 2 years to evaluate that teacher. And if during those 2 years you don't let them go, during those 2 years you can let them go for any reason.
Sure.
If you don't let them go, then they basically get tenure for life.
That's a good gig.
Good.
That's a pretty good gig, taking nothing away from our teachers. I can't think of many professions where after 2 years you get lifetime tenure.
Exactly.
I think that there's been a lot of frustration surrounding these types of tenure rules in the wake of, you probably remember, the Miramonte school case, whereby there was a male teacher who was spoon-feeding his kids male bodily fluids.
Right.
And when the district went to fire him, he appealed. And the appeal was going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. So in addition to getting 25 years in jail, he also got $40,000 from the district just to make the appeal go away.
Right.
Talk to us about what that does to parents when they hear scenarios like that, what that does to a school board member.
I think it really causes parents to have their faith shaken in the school district and in who might be in the classroom. Because everyone's read about these stories where you can do the most egregious things and yet the school district can't just outright fire you. We go through this very long process where at the end of the day we often will pay you to leave because it costs us less money. It's better for the taxpayers if we were to pay you rather than to prolong this legal process.
And that's true. And so, you know, you can criticize the school district for paying out the perpetrator. He's now convicted. He pled no contest in the Miramonte case. But like you said, you do a cost-benefit analysis. Legal fees are more than $40,000.
Right.
There is a bill that's percolating in Sacramento right now, and it would change some of these teacher tenure rules by allowing school districts to speed up the process for serious violations, for serious offenses, attempted murder, sexual offenses, drug offenses. Progress or not enough?
It's definitely progress, and the good thing is the Teachers Association has also bought into this. I think they saw what was happening, what you just described. It's been getting a lot of media attention, these egregious cases, and they knew that something had to be done. There
is no question that the unions have bought into this piece of legislation. But there are those on the other side, including none other than the superintendent of the LAUSD, John Dacey. He wrote an article called "Viguera is a Win for Students." He is not happy with this legislation. He believes that it doesn't go far enough because this legislation would not permit terminations for incompetence, ineffective teaching. What's your sense of his concern?
I think he has a valid concern because when you delve into issues such as incompetence and ability to teach, there's a lot of subjectivity that can be thrown into it. When really, the one question you have to ask any teacher or teachers union representative is, would you put your kid in that classroom to be taught by this teacher? Chances are they'd say no, but they're still going to fight for that teacher and make it very difficult for us to move forward and get a better teacher in place.
I want to shift gears and talk about another matter pending before the legislature, also, as we understand, driven by the teachers' unions. It's a bit esoteric, but important nonetheless. And what this provision in the recent budget does is it puts a cap on the amount of money school districts can put into reserve. Now, if I didn't know the issue, I wouldn't see what the problem was with that. So, or the problem, at least from the district's perspective. So as a school board member of a district, what is the concern with that provision?
The concern is that if Hacienda La-Puente did not have 15–20% reserves for the last 3–4 years, we would have had to furlough and lay off hundreds of teachers, possibly. And any school district that just maintained the minimum 3% that's mandated by the state, they definitely went through furloughs and layoffs. And so now we're in an era of local control. We're saying we want local control on the one hand, but on the other hand, we're completely tying the hands of districts by not letting them manage their own finances. It's kind of hypocritical.
And as I understand it, the reason why the union, the teachers union, pushed for this provision to cap the amount of reserves is that so more money would be available for salaries and other matters. I mean, query whether that's not a legitimate concern.
Well, these reserves are just one-time funds. So even if we could theoretically spend down the reserves and give it to the teachers as salary, it wouldn't be there the next year. So it's I don't think it's thinking very far-sighted when you think that reserves can just be spent down and given out as salaries.
But if you're capping reserves, I agree with you in terms of the reserves right there.
Right.
If, assuming this legislation does march forward, reserves will have to be dropped, that money has to be spent, but year after year, there's still more money in the pot.
Year after year, there's more money in the pot, but then when you factor in the increased contribution we have to put into CalSTRS, where we're going from 8%
That is true.
to 19%.
That is true.
I mean, all of the money that we've gotten, the increase that we've seen in this current budget for Common Core, for local control funding formula, it's pretty much going to go towards contributions towards CalSTRS down the line.
Really?
Yeah.
That's how large that CalSTRS contribution is.
We're going from 8% to 19%.
And of course, CalSTRS is the teacher's pension.
The teacher's
fund.
pension, right.
We know that is one of the most underfunded pension items, kind of future liability that is in the state budget. And so, with a hole of $75 billion, aside from where the money is coming from, is it still wise to try to plug that hole?
We've made a commitment to our teachers. They are dependent upon that commitment at this point, but I think it's a little bit unfair to be punishing future generations for bad investment decisions that took place in 2001 and 2009. It was because of the stock market crashes that happened then that we're now in this huge hole. And now we're asking school districts to contribute 70% of that hole, of that deficit.
Yet California is contributing some.
California's contributing some.
Teachers are contributing some.
Some.
But it's still not the lion's share, which you say.
The bulk is the school district.
So what do the school districts do from here?
Well,
is there much that can be done?
There's not much that can be done. It's mandated. And so the best we can do is hopefully, nobody knew that, people knew that this might be coming, but in terms of our own budget projections, we didn't put it in. So now once we factor this in, how much do we actually have for salary increases, for new programs, et cetera? It diminishes quite greatly because payroll is such a huge percentage.
Do you have a sense as to how much of that CalSTRS hole will now be plugged because of these increased contributions?
Well, the idea is that after 7 years, when we reach that 19% contribution level, it should be completely solvent after 7 years. So we're phasing it in slowly.
And nothing can be done. This was passed, it's over.
This was passed, it's over. I don't even know, there's going to be a budget, there's going to be a proposition in November for the rainy day fund. I don't even think this is a part of that.
Interesting.
So if it's part of the budget, then it's been passed.
I wanted to offer, by the way, my hearty congratulations to you and your lovely wife, Karen, who I know well. Karen also has worked in the political arena. She's currently working at the California Science Center, but you and Karen have brought a little one, a future student of Hacienda La-Puente, into the world. His name is Lincoln. I can't believe you're here because the baby, as we speak today, is 9 days old. Talk to us about Karen, talk to us about Lincoln, talk to us about becoming a new father. And I ask you that because you are a school board member.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that I can finally make a contribution to our school's ADA.
Right, exactly, average daily attendance.
We've had declining enrollment, so this will help a little bit. But, the main takeaway was I was just so impressed by my wife.
I get it.
Yeah.
I saw your Facebook post and you said something like, she is my hero. When my wife delivered, I was absolutely flummoxed by what the female of our species go through to bring life into this world. It is a miracle. Congratulations
Thank
again.
you so much,
we
Brad.
appreciate it. His name is Chen. He is a member of the Hacienda La-Puente School Board. My name is Brad Pomerance, and this is California Edition.